Three tales of three warriors versus the ultimate killing machine. Let's go hunting. Predator, Killer of Killers is a Hulu original from the director of Prey and is an anthology-style movie with animation that certainly pops at times, set over 3 time periods, and also features predators of different varieties. In a movie called Predator, Killer of Killers, how utterly delightful! By the way, for those that are new to the channel, this is Parker. This is a dog that my parents got, and let's just say when he needs to be watched because he's a little silly sausage, isn't he? A little silly sausage that needs constant love and attention. So when no one's around, I have to make sure that he's taken care of. So he's going to join me on this review. You only heard me talk about this movie and react to it. So let's just say Predator, Killer of Killers continues the rekindling of the franchise after Prey, starring the incredibly talented and gifted and gorgeous Amber Midthunder, happened to basically breathe new life into the Predator franchise, which admittedly was on the rocks and was basically just pretty much dead and pulverized into the goddamn depths of whatever the fuck movie hell it is. So this received some attention and has received lavish praise across multiple platforms that review movies, including Letterboxd and otherwise, and you're just going to stay here and everything because you're okay. So, yes, set over 3 time periods, we have 841 AD with Vikings and a mother that is basically straight out of the Witcher playbook, along with her son Anders, who's seeking revenge on a man that did some nasty stuff to her when she was younger. And then we have 1609 AD Japan with 2 brothers, I assume, or they could be 2 very, very close cousins for all I know. And then we have samurai competing against a predator. And then we have, in the early 1940s, we have the bullet. By the way, the Japan one is called the sword. The Viking one is called the shield. And then, yes, the 1940s version is called The Bullet. There's a wraparound story as well. It's a nice, tight, literally, I think 78 minutes, if I'm right. You're a little bit nervous, aren't you? So don't worry, he's comfortable. So how is this movie, basically? It's all right. It's not necessarily something that I loved. I'm not quite seeing how the praise was necessarily heaped on this. Besides the violence is pretty cool. The violence in The Shield is pretty nice. There's some nice violence in The Sword. And then The Bullet has a bit more of, I guess, an emotional punch since we find out a little bit more about these characters. The wraparound story is okay. It is at least a presentation of ideas that could be fleshed out into full-length Predator movies. And I think that's kind of its undoing, because while it's an ambitious project, and the bite-sized chunk portions certainly are nice, and it won't take up too much time in your day, the stories also aren't that interesting. Like, especially, The Shield's okay. The Sword is alright, I guess. It does have a nice little thing wrapping around about leaves falling, and that actually is pretty nice. But, yeah, I ultimately just came away feeling, the animation at times pops. There are times where it looks cool. There are other times where it looks janky. I'm sorry, this style didn't really appeal to me as much as I thought. But the goopy, splattery violence is certainly nice and is definitely something that you could watch if you need to do some pet sitting. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. It's okay. Hey. Look right there. See? That's you. That's you. You're the ultimate barking machine, not necessarily the ultimate killing machine. So that being said, Predator, Killer of Killers is definitely a bit of a return to form. I mean, it's not as good as Prey, in my personal opinion. But there are a few neat little Easter eggs for those that have followed the Predator movies. I still need to go back and rewatch like Predator 2 because I hate myself, and also the Alien vs. Predator movies. And a few others. I mean, to be perfectly honest, if you are going to get deep into the Predator lore, you may get more out of this. But for just somebody that appreciates like the original as just being balls to the wall ridiculous action, and let's be perfectly honest, Predators and The Predator, or whatever order those went in. There was one with Adrian Brody, and then there was one, I believe Shane Beck did. I think that's his name. That was in 2018. That was fraught with a lot of issues and really was supposed to return the thing back to its form and, back to its original form. Like, make it fun. Well, it didn't. At least Prey was good. This has its moment. Not necessarily great, not necessarily bad. More like chewing gum that you are going to lose the flavor of right after you just start to enjoy it. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, should we talk about what happened in the 841 set? Okay, so you have Ursa, not an Ursa Major, by the way. You also have Anders, who's her son. And it turns out that she's looking for a man named Zoran, because you don't mess with the Zorhan. Or the Gohan, or the Gonad, or whatever the hell that was. Whatever the hell that goddamn Adam Sandler movie was. Zohan, that's right. Nevertheless, basically, they end up going up into the mountains, and she's going to find revenge on somebody that killed her father, Andrew's grandfather. And it's because she tells a story where basically the father was going to die, and the father made her kill him because he was mortally wounded. He was going to die anyway. It's like, and avenge me, and that's something that ties back into the finish of this a little bit. I did like the action of cutting off the heads and stuff like that and everything. The Predator appearance as she confronts the man that caused her all this grief, and she was going to get this revenge. And then unfortunately, Anders ends up killing the guy. But then the Predator shows up and causes a whole bunch of destruction. She ends up at the bottom of a frozen lake while Anders is pretty beat up. And then she ends up outsmarting this Predator that has a weird pump gun, essentially, on his hands. And she gets an anchor involved on one of the ships that's shipwrecked in this icy lake. It gets wrapped around the gun, and she ends up basically using the gun against, him to, pulsate and push herself out of this while he ends up drowning. Because the Predator ultimately is the ultimate killing machine, but is also monumentally stupid. So, she ends up not being able to save Anders, and then suddenly it cuts to a ship where, what the hell? Why does she have a collar on her? What the hell is going on? And then there's a weird guy kneeling, and we go to 1609 Japan. Okay, spoiler, everybody involved in this, ending the lives of these Predators are all on a ship. Why? We'll find out. So we find out about this one guy that didn't want to kill his brother, cousin, whatever the fuck, to get a samurai helmet. And then 20-something years later, we see that, well, he is a really, really good assassin. The brother has honored the father. The father is dead. The Predator shows up and kills some samurai. The two brothers have to team up. Neat little violence, goopy stuff about, with smoke bombs and everything. Shrieking Krieger from Archer Noises, as well as some good stuff about brother Bonds. There is the thing, not Barry Bonds, by the way. We don't need that, bloated Macy's Day Parade float-headed fucker doing that. Great player, but never should have done all those roids. That's including everybody in the goddamn Baseball Hall of Fame. Nevertheless, let's not talk about that. The whole thing is, there was a thing in the beginning about, leaves grow on trees together, yet when they fall alone. So these brothers team up. They ultimately do outsmart this Predator using one of the bombs. That stuff causes an explosion, but then the Predator is in the middle of them. They do this samurai showdown thing, like a Kurosawa film, or at least attempting to be a Kurosawa film, and they end up chopping him in half. Well, one of the brothers dies, and then we see that guy's on there, and suddenly we cut to another one. That his name is Torres. He has a dad. He is dreaming of being a pilot, and he ultimately ends up, working on engines. There's a thing about how he flooded the engine in his car, which is why he couldn't compete against this, why he couldn't chase this plane down and stuff like that. And he says, I can't bail you out. You got a draft notice, by the way. You're going to go into the Army or the Navy. In the Navy, we can sail the 7 seas in the Navy. The Predator will not put our pilots at ease in the Navy. He'll use a grappling hook in the Navy and tear them down from the skies in the Navy. So you just don't want to sing. You don't want to sing, huh? Get a treat in a minute after this, okay? So basically, I would have the producer on, by the way, but the producer is currently sleeping. And he doesn't have abandonment issues like this one does. So, Torres is working on planes. There's a plane called the Bullet, and he has a boss, I believe, Vandy or General, whatever the hell the ranking is. And there are others that are like, well, you're a good pilot and everything, but piloting is just more about than haying the gas and stuff like that. There's junker planes called the Bullet. He's fixing that thing up. Suddenly, the Predator is in the sky, killing people like crazy. This is not as good as Shadow in the Cloud, which actually was a lot of fun. By no means a great narrative, and logic, and physics be damned. But it had Chloe Grace Moretz. That was good. There are some names you may recognize in the cast, by the way, if you want to check that out. But ultimately, yes, I know cast. I know. You're going to get some food soon. So basically, Torres ends up having to get in this plane and rescue everybody as best he can. Well, I mean, he can't really rescue. He's trying to outsmart this goddamn thing. And by the way, predators hunt by heat. And Torres figures that out when he puts something in to keep his plane going, turns down some stuff, turned down for what, and gets onto his wing to try and stop a fire, because that's what you do when you're like 10,000 feet in the air. You try to fix your own goddamn wing. There's something on the wing of the plane. Something. So ultimately, he ends up going with Vandy up into the sky. But then Vandy's like, this plan's great, but this character needs to die, so I'm going to die. No, don't do that, Vandy. So they're trying to outsmart him with altitude. They outsmart him with altitude, and ultimately, Torres is able to take the ship down by taking him into enemy territory. And great. Then he's back at a garage. Everything's fine. There was one cool scene, by the way, with a grappling hook going in somebody's plane and ripping them out. That was actually kind of nice. There were some cool deaths and some cool animated moments, but there were just other times it just felt janky. Like Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Not nearly as big of a budget. In fact, I would venture to guess that this probably had half the budget of that. Yes, I know. You were... Hey, it's almost done. It's almost done. You're doing great. You're doing amazing, sweetie. So then Torres is at a garage because he flooded the engine. He outsmarted the deal and everything. He's doing his stuff, and then suddenly a ship shows up and does crop circle stuff, and now he's on the ship. These three are brought to the Predator planet, whatever the name of the planet is. If they've ever mentioned it, I forgot. Forgive me. Not exactly my cup of tea. The Predator movies are good to an extent. Well, the first one's really good. Prey's really good. Need to put Amber Mid-Thunder in more stuff, by the way. And now they are going to compete against the Grendel King, as Ursa calls, because Ursa's alive, the samurai guy's alive, and Torres is alive. How were they kept alive all this time? Cryo sleep. And they're going to compete against this. Also, other creatures are showing up. Giant, walkie creature. Slimy, big old creature that ends up eating a predator. One predator prisoner or a predator guard that has one of those, arm gun things. That factors into when Torres is like, hey guys, we need to team up and take them down. They each get a weapon from their own time, except Torres gets a weapon that's a pistol from the 1700s that he doesn't know how to load. Ursa gets an axe. Samurai guy gets a goddamn... if they said the samurai guy's name at any point, I apologize. I didn't care. But he gets a sword. And they're competing. And is what it is. They're just doing their own thing. Torres says, if we can get up there, I can fly us out of here. Because I took down one of those ships before and did this stuff. And they end up basically... it's down to the two adults. Torres ends up getting swallowed up by one of the creature, or by the big old creature, but finds the predator gun, blows himself out of it, gets on one of those, race cart deals, gets them on there, and gets up to the ship, and they're fighting the king. Torres is on the ship trying to get things going, the big old ship, to get out of there. And then, in trying to save Ursa, because Ursa, is trying to save who she affectionately calls Weasel, a.k.a. the samurai guy. He gets his arm cut off. But they get up there, they get a grappling hook, however, hooked into them, and she looks down and says, do not avenge me. She slides down and says, all your technology and all your stuff, you have failed, Grendel King. How would she know about this technology, even though she's been at a crowd sleep? It's fine, whatever, it's fine. The writing's pretty dog shit. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know dog shit. I didn't mean to insult you. But, it's getting very nervous. I gotta wrap this up. But, Torres and the samurai guy take off. And the Predator King, or somebody, says, let's go hunting. So they take off back to Earth. Because, yay, that's what we need more of. So Ursa's back in her cryosleep, and they pass by some people, including Amber Midthunder's character from Prey, who I forgot the name of, but I remember Amber Midthunder. I'll remember her till the day I die. But that being said, ultimately the movie has some decent animation. Or actually some pretty good animation at times, but other times it looks a little weird. And the story, sometimes it's janky. There are parts that work, but I didn't really feel any emotional attachment or really anything that made me think, yeah, this was worth all the praise. But if you guys liked it, great. To me, I give it a C+. You give it 2.5 barks out of 5, so you pretty much agree with me. Okay, let's wrap this up. C+. So agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Ritland. This is Parker. And until we meet again, happy trails to you.